Welcome to Warcraft Geography, where we look for physical similarities between the original RTS titles and World of Warcraft, supplement with history when that isn't possible, and put the most minute details on a pedestal. Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness is an upgrade in every way to the first game. The lore and locations expanded, the roster of units exploding with a variety of new races and roles, new fables, new heroes, fucking airships! But by all accounts, the biggest improvements would come from the smallest changes. With so many improvements, let's not waste any more time gushing and get this war party started.
The Horde is preparing to launch an assault against the mainland of Lordaeron. Orgrim Doomhammer, war chief of the Orcish Hordes and ruler of the Blackrock clan, has ordered you to establish a small outpost on Lordaeron's southern shores. To secure the Zul'dare region as Doomhammer demands, you will need to construct a barracks and several farms to feed your troops. Your success may help us determine the extent of the pathetic human defenses and what resistance they can offer against our forces.
With the annihilation of the human forces and their great city of Stormwind, Orgrim Doomhammer and his Orcish Horde would relaunch their war effort almost immediately, their burning eyes set upon the farthest reaches of the horizon in this new land, wishing to strike while the iron is hot and offer the humans no respite. Starting off strong with a locale that does not actually feature in World of Warcraft, a tiny fleck of an island frozen in the sea just north of Quel'Thalas, amongst the Channel Islands. It's surrounded by more notable locations, all of which are represented now with the addition of the expansions, for better or for worse. Yeah, there we go. Though unlikely, it's possible that Zul'dare could be Purgation Isle that rests just off the coast of Hillsbrad. I say unlikely due to the proximity to Hillsbrad and the size of the island itself. As it stands, Zul'dare is yet to appear in World of Warcraft. Despite the Zul prefix being a troll naming convention, there's nothing across any of the games, nor the books, that refers to the place as related to trolls. It's basically never mentioned again. Empty when you show up, and presumably empty after you leave. Classic first mission though. Farms and barracks, please. Now get out of here.
Our spies report that a band of human soldiers have captured a war party led by Troll Commander Zul'dare and have taken them to a secret prison near the township of Hillsbrad. Seeing an opportunity to place these captives in debt to the Horde, Doomhammer sends you to ransom Zul'dare and his trolls and return them to their own encampment nearby. The war chief believes that this raid upon the unsuspecting prison will strike terror into the hearts of those who would dare resist the Horde.
Here comes a new challenger!
Zul'dare, head honcho of the Amani tribe, future amputee, and local business owner.
Zul'dare's rarities are renowned throughout the lands of Lordaeron.
Makes his debut appearance alongside his troll brethren. Although he looks like a complete gronk in this official art by Chris Metzen, Zul'dare would join the Orcish war effort, offering their expertise in throwing axes and naval vessels. Forest trolls, am I right? The Orcs again show a lack of compassion, using this daring rescue as a stepping stone to the benefit of the Orcish Horde. Rescue troll and maybe friend? No. Rescue troll and make a favor.
Make him an offer you can't refuse.
The definition of a ransom is also misused here, unless the Orcs intend to pay the ransom with a human blood? Assumedly, these missions are taking place during winter, as a snowy Hillsbrad is never seen in World of Warcraft. Hillsbrad is a prominent location of the Second War, with a number of battles being fought here. Canonically, Zul'dare is rescued from Darrow Keep in the aftermath of the Battle of Hillsbrad Foothills by Orgrim Doomhammer, putting it more towards the end of Act 1.
Preparation for a final strike on Hillsbrad, the war chief directs you to begin construction of facilities for the Orcish Armada near the Southshore region. Zul'dare and his trolls, eager to take revenge upon the humans who imprisoned them, have agreed to aid Horde by supplying axe throwers and destroyers to assist in defending your Southshore operation. A shipyard must be constructed in order to build our wave riders, and you will need much of the black liquid known as oil to build your fleet. Our assault on Hillsbrad cannot begin until your task is completed.
Oil! The forgotten fourth resource after bodies, wood, and cold hard cash. An integral part of the Orcish naval war campaign, which is a good portion of Warcraft 2. In fact, with the exception of the very first one, every Orc mission has a significant amount of the map taken up by water. Though the town Southshore in World of Warcraft shares the name of this mission, the intro monologue states that it's just near the region. It's a hidden location, as the human campaign tells us. It's a secret lair of the Channel Islands southeast of Hillsbrad. This island is another contender for the possible location of Purgation Isle.
Now that the Armada is well supplied with the precious black substance that your tankers have amassed, Doomhammer feels it is time to make a gruesome example of Hillsbrad. With the aid of new foundry sites that allow you to construct more advanced ships, you may build transports to deliver your forces across the channel to the cowering human settlement. All who oppose the Horde must be taught a harsh lesson. Leave no one alive.
The vast differences of the maps are most blatant here. Do these maps look the same to you? Can you spot the difference?
Just as the Earth did millions of years ago.
The geography has morphed between each iteration until it's finally settled into what we see today. The region of Gilneas and this whole peninsula has basically been shifted up and has been nestled a little more snugly into Lordaeron. Almost the entirety of Azeroth has seen these alterations. It's no small feat to transform the real-time strategy maps that are a series of pitched battles into a structured, flowing experience. Going from an eye-in-the-sky view to this more intimate and personal viewpoint is quite an undertaking, and Blizzard, in my opinion, did a terrific job marrying the gameplay to the game world. It's very much a part of the experience. It's in the title, the World of Warcraft. Hillsbrad is one of the bloodiest locations in Warcraft's entire history. A civil war, Orcish raids, Dalaran getting just hosed by Archimonde. The violence has continued with the prominence of world PvP before battlegrounds were introduced and an ongoing conflict to control the Altaric Mountains. Perhaps it's for this reason the area is so pastoral and lush. Blood and bone, to help the crops grow.
The township of Hillsbrad has been decimated, and throughout the human kingdoms, the rumors of impending doom spread like wildfire. War Chief Doomhammer is pleased with your success and has deemed you worthy of a more difficult task. Troubles have arisen in the dwarven lands of Modan. A task force of Stromgarde warriors have laid siege to Dun Modra, a vital staging area for Horde troops. You are to retake Dun Modra and then bring your forces to bear against Stromgarde's nearby island citadel of Barad.
Dun Modra, which you may remember as that one place in the wetlands with the elite Dark Iron Dwarves. Gee whiz, those guys are dicks. Was located north of the Thandal Span in Warcraft 2. Parts of the fortification pierced the higher reaches of the mountain, implying that the structure is larger than what is actually accessible from the ground. The Orcish Horde would conquer this location, seeing it for its strategic importance as a bottleneck, and set up an outpost nearby. Dun Mudra has been captured and recaptured multiple times in its lifespan. The dwarves live there, then the orcs move in rent-free and kick the dwarves out, then the Alliance sweeps in and it falls under their control. The Dark Iron dwarves kick a few asses and they lay claim to the place, and recently it fell back under dwarven control as Thargus Anvilmar would lead Alliance heroes to victory. So as we can see by this chart, dwarves, then orcs, then the Alliance, then Dark Iron dwarves, and then the dwarves again. It's cyclical, you see. Tol Barad, which you may remember as Wintergrasp 2, Shitty Edition, is located west of Modan. Following its destruction in this mission, Tol Barad would be rebuilt and repurposed into an exceptionally high-level security prison. It would house some of Azeroth's most dangerous captives, including those not suited to the Violet Hold inside of Dalaran. With the introduction of Mists of Pandaria, the Horde canonically claimed victory over Tol Barad.
Our forces report decisive victories off the coasts of Daenerys and Tol Barad.
Meaning that history has once again repeated itself.
We're being attacked today. You got me? Yes, I am the captain. Huh? What do you want to do? Look, you got me? All right. Huh? Doomhammer has sent word that the Ogre Mage Chokgal, chieftain of the Twilight's Hammer clan, is personally inspecting the refinery at Grimbatal. Chokgal and his convoy will be traveling through the Badlands of Modan, and an ambush by Stromgarde warriors is expected. The War Chief expects you to safeguard Chokgal and his minions through this region. Should he die, your life will be forfeit as well.
The first thing that you might recall about the Badlands, apart from that one quest for the fire weapon enchant where the drop rate from the Wyrmlings is extremely low, is the fact that the Badlands isn't surrounded by water. The dangerously insane, big bad chunky boy himself, Chokgal, leader of the Twilight Hammer clan and full-time fanatic of the Old Gods, makes his first appearance here. As if brokering real estate deals with the lieutenants of Ragnaros in Blackrock Mountain wasn't enough, here he is, also serving as the Horde's occupational health and safety inspector.
Hello, my name is Chokgal. Here is my certificate in safety and my clipboard. That is an irregulation 10-foot pole. And by the way, did I
mention that even death may die?
As we can see here, there have been a number of changes to the locations within Modan. Dun Algaz was originally much farther north. Grimbatal was closer to the center of the wetlands, and what appears to be the lock of Loch Modan was not east of Ironforge. Despite the Horde's warpath being mostly in the northern part of the Eastern Kingdoms, the Badlands is much farther south. I have two theories as to why. Number one, the Badlands was originally intended to be here, closer to the western coast. And two, Chokgal and his cronies are making this journey from Blackrock Spire. While the Indiana Jones line gives us the impression that each mission takes place one after the other, Theory 2 is more likely, especially considering the base of operations for the Horde, and Chokgal in particular, is Blackrock Mountain. In either case, the water is there, in my opinion, to guide the player to the objective. On a side note, I wanted to mention there's a nice little Easter egg in the Badlands referencing one of my favorite movies, Conan the Barbarian, right here.
Yes, Master. Yes, Master. Right away. Of course. Cho'Gall reports that the Khaz Modan refineries are well maintained and fulfilling their quotas. The Horde will now have more than enough oil to mount a fierce campaign in the lands far to the north. Only the troublesome human defenders of Stromgarde remain to be dealt with before sending the Horde on its next sojourn. The human fleet has captured a group of our transports just south of Stromgarde. Recapture these vessels and then lay waste to their capital.
Lore aside, the geography of Stromgarde matches up fairly well, despite the rest of the landmass being absent from World of Warcraft. It's an otherwise unremarkable mission. Get the boats, build a base, grab an axe, and then lay waste to the coastal fortification, as is expected of almost every mission in this game. Stromgarde, however, does have some rather fantastic history. After uniting the scattered human tribes under the single banner of Strom, King Thoradin of the Arathi constructed a mighty fortress. The humans congregated here, which sheltered them from the Imani trolls and allowed them to prosper. Years later, Strom would fracture into 7 smaller nations. These nations were Dalaran, Gilneas, Alterec, Quel'Thalas, Lordaeron, Stormwind, and the now reduced Stromgarde. Each nation has its own lengthy history that is far too long to cover in depth here. It's fairly safe to assume that after the assault on Stromgarde, the Orcs would mobilize their forces and sail north via the river to Caer Darrow, leading us deep into the frozen bowels of Act III.
Forces have been assigned to an area along the southern border of the Elven Kingdom of Quel'Thalas. Gul'dan, hoping to sow the seeds of chaos among the human and elven allies, has located a mysterious elven artifact near the keep of Darrow. This huge, monolithic runestone is guarded by a human castle on the small island located in the middle of Darrowmere Lake. You must destroy the forces that guard this relic and gain control of the runestone for use by the Horde.
What, huh? Yes, Master.
Far to the north, in the Eastern Kingdoms, there is a quiet little island situated on a lake. The island, at first glance, seems all but abandoned. All alone, a bastion of solace, but just below the surface lies the awful secrets of the Barad family. But none of that shit's happened yet, because it's Warcraft 2, baby! Now, about this runestone. After the kingdom of Quel'Thalas was founded, the High Elves began to fear that the use of arcane magic would bring about the return of the Burning Legion. Dathramar Sunstrider, leader of the Highborn, would task his leading arcanists to prevent this. Over many decades, a series of monolithic runestones were constructed around Quel'Thalas' border. Named the Gatekeeper, or Bandonorial in the High Elf language, was used to conceal the use of magic, ward off the superstitious Imani trolls, and weaken the magic of all non-elves inside its border. That's all well and good until an orc chops off your arms and uses your fancy rock to make an altar that turns ogres into ogre mages.
We're not brainless anymore.
Only 3 altars remain in World of Warcraft today. One in the Burning Steppes, one in the Blasted Lands, and finally, the Altar of Twilight, which is referred to as the last Altar of Storm by Cho'Gall himself.
Yes, Master. Master, all right. Yes, Master.
Sharing ship. creature of the Elven Runestone, Gul'dan has been able to warp the power it contains to mutate an entire legion of his loyal and ruthless ogres into wielders of arcane magics. Along with this transformation, these ogre magi have been granted deadly magics and a malicious cunning rivaling that of Gul'dan himself. You are to employ the ogre magi in the creation and defense of a fortress at the mouth of Caer's Bay, cutting off the human supply lines into Quel'Thalas.
Caer's Hand in vanilla World of Warcraft is a rather impressive stronghold belonging to the Scarlet Crusade. However, it is most notably lacking a port. It would remain landlocked by mountains until the introduction of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. During the Death Knight introduction scenario, we are presented with New Avalon, expanding Caer's Hand all the way to the ocean. This expanded landscape would reveal a dock, reconciling the differences between the two maps. The Orcs launched their assault from Caer's Bay, which doesn't feature at all in World of Warcraft, which completely shatters the notion that any of these maps carry any resemblance to the current day content. With the sea separating the two lands, the gap between them may simply be a representation of a larger voyage. Perhaps this patch of land is somewhere closer to the region where the Horde already has several bases established.
Work complete. Work complete. Work complete. Stratholme, the chief source of Alliance oil in the north, is preparing to deliver massive amounts of oil to the kingdoms in western Lordaeron. You must sabotage their refineries and platforms to halt this shipment. Once Stratholme's ability to gather and process oil is destroyed, proceed to crush any and all resistance offered by the Alliance.
Stratholme is well known across Warcraft, so it doesn't need much of an introduction. It's one of the more significant sites in recent history. Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, the dungeon in World of Warcraft, the dungeon in World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King, the Death Knight Mount quest in World of Warcraft Legion, and the Battle Pet quests in World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth. In addition to extensive in-game events, the history of Stratholme stretches back to the beginnings of the human nations. In the centuries following the Troll Wars and the establishment of Lordaeron, the Church of the Holy Light was founded. Many holy sites and temples were constructed, amongst the oldest and most revered of which included Stratholme. Within its walls, the Alonsis Chapel would commence an indoctrination of 5 heroic knights: Gavinrad, Sidon Dathrahan, Tyrellian, Tyrion Fordring, and Uther Lightbringer. And thus was created
The Knights of the Silver Hand!
With this information, we can claim with almost certainty that this is the Alonsis Chapel. Interestingly enough, in Warcraft 2, the city is a port town, but it isn't depicted as such in World of Warcraft or in the original release of Warcraft 3. However, it is described as a port town in Chronicle Volume 1, as well as the revamped Culling of Stratholme mission in Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Destruction of Stratholme, the Alliance supply lines to Quel'Thalas have been severed. Only a handful of human and elven defenders remain to safeguard the ancient elf kingdom from the onslaught of the Horde. The enchanted domain of the elves has inspired Gul'dan to unleash his most perverted creation, the Death Knights. Born from the corpses of the fallen Knights of Azeroth, these once proud defenders of humanity now serve the Horde in a blasphemous state of eternal undeath, conjuring dark spells of necromantic horror upon their terrified foes. These Death Knights seek to unleash their wrath upon any foolish enough to stand in their way.
Yeah! Fuck yeah! Yeah, that's fucking metal!
Oh, what an intro. This one in particular highlights the talent of Bill Roper, who reprised his role as the narrator. While many of the mission maps in Warcraft 2 are dissimilar to their World of Warcraft counterpart, this one has some fortunate landmarks we can compare. Okay, this is where it gets geographically juicy. This is some top secret shit Blizzard doesn't want you to know. They tried to bury it, but I'm going to expose the truth. These lakes intersect. Bombshell. There are several lakes that line up well throughout Quel'Thalas. The one near Suncrown Village is the closest match, despite there being a small landmass in the middle. The final part of Act 3 also introduces the Death Knight. The expansion pack, Beyond the Dark Portal, fleshes out this unit and introduces my favorite character across all of Warcraft, Terran Gorefiend. Yeah, not this piece of shit, this guy, the guy that looks like he just stepped out of a death metal album cover. I'll be covering his exploits and additional information about the Death Knights in a future video, so disembowel that subscribe button, or you might miss out.
Yes, Master. What? Of course. The Northlands have fallen, and now only the western regions of Lordaeron stand defiant before the ultimate supremacy of the Horde. As the Orc clans prepare for their final, massive campaign against the weakening Alliance, the War Chief sends you ill tidings. Gul'dan and his Stormreaver clan have betrayed the Horde and coerced the Twilight's Hammer clan to set sail and search for an ancient tomb said to be buried beneath the waves. An infiltrator under the direction of Doomhammer reports that Gul'dan has indeed raised volcanic islands from the ocean floor and thus has opened a hidden vault. While it is unknown what the Great Warlock has released from this tomb, the War Chief has issued this command: destroy the renegade clans and return with the head of Gul'dan.
Over the years, the tomb has made several appearances, becoming more elaborate with every release. In Legion, the tomb is a towering monolith. There's obviously been some renovating between each game. Gul'dan gathered those loyal to him and set course for the tomb. The Stormreaver clan and Cho'Gall, along with his Twilight Hammer cultists, followed suit, meaning a full third of the Horde's deployed forces just broke off and left. Without hesitation, he raised the tomb from the ocean floor, cast open its doors, and advanced to claim the power for himself. This power was, in fact, promised to him by Sargeras, and was the main catalyst driving the opening of the portal on Draenor, and the invasion of Azeroth in the first place. Upon entry to the tomb, Gul'dan began his search for the Eye of Sargeras, an artifact boasting the promise of godhood. Those brave enough to follow would become overwhelmed with fear and abandon their master at the sight of the hellish demons. Gul'dan, however, persevered. The artifact was almost in his grasp, but it slipped through his fingers as the Guardians of the Eye set themselves upon the traitorous orc and ripped out his skull. The remainder of Gul'dan's forces would find no better fate outside the walls of this grave. Rend and Maim Blackhand, two names you might recognize from Blackrock Spire, lead the Blacktooth Grin clan in this mission. They deal a near-lethal blow to those at the tomb, including Cho'Gall, who is sliced open by Rend and Maim. While Cho'Gall would suffer a cross-shaped wound along his torso, he and a handful of the Twilight Hammer cultists survived and managed to escape. Forced to sail west into uncharted waters, they eventually make landfall at Kalimdor, drawn by the whispers of the old gods.
I would love to. You're the captain. Ahoy! Of judgment is close at hand as the Orcish hordes stand ready to sweep across this domain like a pestilence and seize the capital of Lordaeron. Standing vigilant above the plains like the descending arm of Twilight itself is the violet citadel of Dalaran. The citadel, serving as sanctum and haven to the mages of Lordaeron, is the last barrier between the orcs and their subjugation of humanity. Manifested in the combined magical prowess of all mages within the Alliance, this place must fall for the Horde to conquer Lordaeron. Fortunately, Orgrim Doomhammer has saved his greatest weapon, ready to unleash it upon the unsuspecting Alliance at just this moment. Dragons.
One last obstacle looms before the Horde's iron grip reaches the neck of the Alliance lands. The magocratic city of Dalaran was a major proprietor of spells and other arcane magics that would assist the Alliance throughout the Second War and beyond. This magic was in part due to Dalaran being built on a ley line, a strong, free-flowing source of arcane energy. The citizens were protected by powerful incantations within the walls, but this reckless wizardry would draw the attention of the Burning Legion. In order to prevent a demonic invasion, the human magi sought the aid of the elves, who then refined the humans' magical craft. When the Second War began, the elves pledged themselves to the Alliance. Despite the strength of the wizards, the Violet Citadel could not withstand Orgrim Doomhammer's greatest weapon. Dragons! While much of the city is razed in this battle, little time would pass before it was rebuilt. With the Eye of Dalaran, a powerful magical device, the Magi were able to reassemble the destroyed spires. Hold on a minute, there's a pattern forming here. A number of locations that appear throughout the entire Warcraft franchise, such as Stratholme, Dalaran, Quel'Thalas, and Stormwind, are often attacked and destroyed, sometimes more than once. In the Orcs and Humans overview, I frame this briefly as part of the humans' tenacity, their ability to rebound and rebuild. That still holds true, but it does feel a bit hokey to see locations that are completely steamrolled be reused.
Alabaster parapets of Lordaeron's capital loom before you in the distance. The proud, defiant armies of the Alliance stand resolute in their final, fleeting moments. All that remains is the shrill, clarion call to battle and the fulfillment of our destiny. The tides of darkness are now at hand. Zug. Zug. Zug.
Lordaeron here matches quite nicely with the map in World of Warcraft. The water here would be Lordaeron Lake, making this Fenris Isle. Given the recent attack on Dalaran in the previous mission and their starting position here, this would be the Shining Strand. In World of Warcraft, we only see Lordaeron as the Undercity, after it has fallen to the Undead Scourge and been reconditioned by the Forsaken. It's a shame there hasn't been a Caverns of Time dungeon to see the city in its full glory before it was destroyed. While it's possible to fly over the ruined city, it's just that, a ruin. Like the first game, there are some discrepancies in the endings. Canonically, the Horde would fare much worse in the Second War, gaining a few footholds before being overwhelmed by the alliance of humans, elves, dwarves, and gnomes. But in this scenario, not all is well for the residents of Azeroth. Lordaeron is swallowed by the tide of bloodlust and carnage. King Tyrannus is slaughtered, and Lordaeron is crushed. We can assume in this alternate history that following the fall of Lordaeron and the Eastern Kingdoms, the land would be primed for the invasion of the Burning Legion. There would be no need for the creation of the Undead Scourge. The united races would not have the combined strength to halt Archimonde's assault on the World Tree, and the stage would be set for Sargeras' annihilation of Azeroth.
The victory pyres burn high into the twilight skies covering the ruined capital of Lordaeron. Your success has led Orgrim Doomhammer, war chief of the Orcish Hordes, to elevate you to the station of warlord, thus giving you power and the command of your own clan. The alliance has finally been crushed, with all those surviving being slain and cremated as is dictated by the rituals. At long last, Azeroth and all of its lands belong to the thunderous force known to those foolish enough to stand in its way as the Horde.
Thus concludes the Orcish portion of Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness. This installment is by far the most nostalgic for me personally. While I didn't actually play it as a child, my brother sure did, and I have very fond memories of watching over his shoulder as he played. I would always encourage him to play Orcs, my reason being, play the bigger ones, Timmy, they're bigger, and that means they're stronger. I knuckled down and played through it a few years ago, and at first I had thought it was going to be a purely nostalgic novelty and not really that much fun to play, but I could not have been more wrong. The game is fucking great. Having plugged a significant portion of my life into WoW and gorging myself from the lore, I was honestly surprised for some stupid reason that, oh yeah, it's actually based on what happens in the first games. Revisiting the older titles in depth and dissecting the smaller details has been a real blast. Thanks for watching. I honestly hope you found it enjoyable. Slaughter that like button, be kind, and farewell.